And you're holding food someone else desperately wants. He has fish. You have grain. This should be simple. It isn't. He already has enough grain today. Your food is worthless to him, right now. So you both walk away, still hungry. This exact failure happened every single day, for thousands of years. It nearly broke human trade before it began. Economic problem humans ever faced. Direct trading, called bartering. Only worked when two people wanted exactly what the other one had at exactly the same time. Most days, that alignment simply never happened. A farmer with extra wheat couldn't always find a toolmaker who needed wheat that week. Value was real, but it was trapped, stuck inside objects that couldn't easily move between hands. Something was needed that everyone would accept, regardless of what they actually wanted right now. Early communities began agreeing on shared items of value. Salt was one of the first. It preserved food. It was rare in some regions. Everyone needed it constantly. Small bags of salt began changing hands instead of the goods themselves. Cattle became another early standard, especially in farming societies. A single cow represented real wealth, real labor, real survival. But cattle had a problem. You couldn't exactly split a cow into small pieces for a minor trade. Something smaller, more portable, was still missing. On one remote island, communities took this idea to an extreme. Giant carved stone discs, some taller than a person, became a form of money too heavy to ever move. Everyone simply remembered who owned stone, even if it never left its spot. Ownership itself, agreed upon by everyone, was enough to make it valuable. Then people began using seashells along coastlines and far inland. Small polished shells called cowries became widely accepted. They were durable, they were hard to fake, they were easy to carry in a small pouch. For the first time, value could travel in someone's pocket instead of being tied to livestock or grain sacks. Trade networks expanded rapidly once this happened. A trader could walk for days, exchange shells for goods, return with items his own village never had. Then came metal. Early humans discovered that certain metals held value everywhere, not just in one village or region. Copper, bronze, and eventually silver began appearing as small standardized pieces. Someone had a radical idea: stamp these metal pieces with a mark, guaranteeing their weight and their purity. The single decision changed everything. The first true coins were born. No longer did you need to weigh raw metal for every single transaction. A stamped coin already told you exactly what it was worth. Kings and rulers quickly realized something powerful. Whoever controlled the coin-making process controlled the entire economy underneath it. Coins featured the faces of rulers, stamped permanently into metal, spreading their image across every single transaction in the kingdom. Counterfeiting became a serious crime, punishable by death in many early societies. A fake coin wasn't just theft. It was an attack on trust itself. As trade routes grew longer, carrying heavy bags of coins became dangerous and exhausting. Merchants crossing deserts, mountains risked robbery with every heavy coin purse they carried. Someone eventually solved this with a simple piece of paper. Merchants began depositing coins with trusted keepers, receiving a paper receipt in return. That receipt could be traded directly, without ever touching the actual coins. For the first time, a piece of paper itself carried real value. Paper money spread slowly, backed entirely by the promise that it could be exchanged for real gold, silver whenever needed. Banks emerged as the guardians of this promise. Vaults filled with metal, backing the paper circulating outside. A note in your pocket wasn't valuable. Of the paper, it was valuable because of the trust behind it. Entire nations began printing their own official paper currency, standardized, numbered, and protected against forgery. Wars were fought over control of these currencies, over whose paper would be trusted across borders. A nation's strength became tied directly to how much the world trusted its money. But too much trust in printing could break the whole system. When too much money was printed too fast, each note quietly became worth less. A wallet full of notes could suddenly buy far less than it used to. Some nations learned this lesson the hardest way, with prices climbing by the hour. Trust, once broken, was far harder to print back into existence. as economies grew larger. Physical cash alone couldn't keep up with the sheer size of trade happening every single day. Banks introduced something new: numbers on a ledger, representing money without any paper changing hands at all. A merchant no longer needed to carry gold, even paper. He simply needed a trusted record showing what he owned. This was the birth of banking as we understand it today. An entire system built on trust, memory, and careful record-keeping. Checks allowed people to transfer large sums without moving a single coin. Just a signature and a promise. Then came something that would have seemed like magic centuries earlier. A small rectangular card that could pay for anything instantly. Credit cards let people spend money they didn't physically have in front of them, trusting a bank to settle the difference later. For the first time, value existed almost entirely as information. Numbers moving silently between accounts. Wallets grew thinner. Cash became optional in many parts of daily life. Then came computers. Value became even more abstract. Online banking let people check their entire financial life through a simple screen, without ever touching physical currency. Salaries began arriving as silent transfers, numbers appearing in an account overnight. No coins, no paper, nothing physical at all. Shopping shifted online, where a simple click completed transactions that once required physical objects changing hands. A single tap on a phone could now transfer value instantly, anywhere in the world at any hour. QR codes turned smartphones into wallets, letting a simple scan complete an entire transaction in seconds. ATMs let people pull physical cash from an account they could not see or touch. A machine trusted completely simply. A bank stood behind it. Mobile apps eventually replaced the need to visit a bank building at all. Balances, transfers, entire financial histories, now living inside a single glowing screen. Contactless payment turned even the tap itself into something invisible, a wave of the hand near a small reader. The trade was already complete. Value also began moving into things you couldn't hold at all. Owning a tiny piece of a company became its own kind of currency, its worth rising and falling by the hour, based purely on what people believed it was worth. The building never changed. The number describing it never stopped moving. With every new form of value came a new way to abuse trust. Some promised impossible returns, paying early investors with money from new ones until it inevitably collapsed. Occasionally, an entire bank's promise failed all at once. A line of worried figures formed outside its doors. Then came something even stranger: digital currency that existed only as code, verified not by a bank, by thousands of computers working together. Cryptocurrency removed the need for a single trusted authority altogether, replacing it with pure, distributed mathematics. Some saw this as the next natural step in an ancient pattern. Value becoming lighter, faster, and further removed from anything physical. Others worried that money had finally become too abstract to fully understand. And yet, in small corners of the world, the oldest method never fully disappeared. Neighbors still traded eggs for vegetables, favors for favors, without a single coin changing hands. But look closer at what all of this actually represents: salt, shells, coins, paper, numbers on a screen. Cryptocurrency, none of these ever had value on their own. A shell is just a shell. A coin is just stamped metal. A number on a screen is just a number. The real thing being traded, the entire time, was trust. Trust that others would accept it. Trust that it represented real effort, real labor, real worth. Every time you tap a card or send a digital payment, you are repeating the exact same ancient exchange your ancestors made with a bag of salt. You are trading trust for value, just like they did, just with better technology wrapped around it. A farmer once traded grain, hoping a stranger would accept it as fair value. You now trade a tap on a screen, hoping the exact same thing. Look at your own wallet, physical or digital. Understand what you're really carrying. It was never really about the coins, the paper, or the code. It was always about whether someone else would trust what you were offering. Money didn't invent trust. Trust invented money. And every single day, without even noticing, you are still doing exactly what your ancestors did beside that very first failed trade. You are trying to prove that what you have is worth exactly what someone else needs.